Welcome once again to Canon Andrew White. Andrew, you're getting homesick now, aren't you, because of the heat? Well, I say heat.
Well, I'm beginning to think it's nearly as good as Baghdad. Though I checked on my Alexa machine what the temperature was in Baghdad now, and it's 48 degrees, and everybody is complaining here because it's 28.
They're wimps, Andrew. I mean, we're not at 48, but we get 40s this time of the year. So it's all right if it's dry heat, isn't it? It's the wet stuff, the humidity that really pulls you down.
I'm quite happy with any heat as long as it's hot.
Well, yes.
Wet, dry, 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 dry. I don't like the humzine when the sand starts blowing in.
Yeah, we've got that. It's called the Kalima, and it blows in with rain, and you get up and your car's ruined.
It's all messy and dirty.
Right from the Sahara. We're only about 10 miles from the Sahara here, as the crow flies. So
Yeah, so you get it.
that's it. We get it then. Anyway, enough of this weather thing. And I'll tell you what we're going to talk about, and we're going to be bold. Racism.
Yes, what I was writing about was the racism that my father faced as an Anglo-Indian who was brought up in the last days of the British Raj before the fall of the British Empire. And in India, the Anglo-Indians had always been treated very, very well, like the British. But when they came over to England after the cessation of the empire in 1947, my father had been doing his medical school training in India, and he was an extremely bright boy and very well educated. But when he came to England, he couldn't find a place to get into medical school. And so he decided to go to Bible college. And he went and studied at what was then the London Bible College in its great day under Ernest Kevin, which was a good Calvinistic leader. And he did his training there, and he was working as a civil servant, so he used to go as a night student. And he went for several years, and he graduated very well. But it's very interesting, but in those days, he could not find a pastorate to take him because he was seen as being Indian. And you couldn't have a pastor of an English church with an Indian pastor. So he was basically stuck out to dry. And there was a lot of racism in those days. You know, when he fell in love with my mother, her parents were very concerned, even though they were from a Christian background. Once again, could they let her daughter, who was a white English girl, marry this person from a foreign land? And when I look at the situation nowadays, things have changed radically. I had one of my fellow doctor friends come and visit me yesterday, and he trained at Oxford, the John Radcliffe Hospital, and then went to be a missionary doctor in Uganda. And he actually ended up marrying a Ugandan lady, an African black Ugandan lady. And I said, in my father's day, you wouldn't have got away with that. I said, have you faced any racism? He said, no, not at all. Some of my Ugandan colleagues say to my wife, why did you marry a white man and not one of us? So, a very different situation.
The pendulum has swung completely in 2.5 decades, let's say. Now we've gone to the other extreme, and it's an advantage to be ethnic other than white male British. We're not very fashionable anymore.
Yeah, the fact is, my son has got a black girlfriend, and it's seen as being perfectly acceptable and normal. She's actually a Canadian, but her family are from Cameroon. She's only ever been to Cameroon for 1 week in her life, so she's a proper Canadian. But people don't seem to mind about them two having a relationship.
No, I mean, it's a bit scary, this, Andrew, because we are almost twins. We both got the old shoddy bodies. We're never out of hospitals and various things.
Shoddy bodies and Indian heritage.
We have. My great grandmother was Indian, and she was a Christian, and she came over to the UK. And I tease people. I say, well, look, I'm 1/8 Indian. You're 1/4 Indian, so you're more Indian than I am. And I say to people, look, I'm 1/8 Indian. I've got a brown leg. Do you want to see it? And they don't believe it. Well, if they saw my mum, sadly no longer with us, you could certainly see the Indian in her. And I tell you what, as an aside, when I go to an Indian restaurant, love the food. That's obviously genetic. And it's a very healthy food, actually, if you eat
Absolutely.
a good Indian restaurant. They recognize my bone structure and my nose as being Indian, and I get extra portions.
Good. There's got to be some advantages.
Well,
But it really is frightening to see how much in a generation or two past, how the racism was so extensive in England.
well, you say that, Andrew, but let me tell you, I was brought up in Manchester. My best mate happened to be an Indian, and we were all in the proverbial gang. But there was no sense of racism at all in the Manchester area in the, let's say, the 50s. And I don't know why. Perhaps it's different parts of the country.
Well, it's different communities, isn't it?
Yes.
Different communities. But I am just so pleased that today we can live without that racist past. And today there is really the acceptance of the other. And I don't think I would have been frowned upon nowadays for not being completely white and a bit swarthy and of mixed race.
Yes, it is very difficult, and it's an area that has gone to extremes, as the pendulum does. And we've got this dreaded diversity, equality, and inclusivity thing at the moment, which has taken us.
We have, which isn't just race, it's sexuality and color and
Yeah.
everything else. And you almost have to be the other to be really acceptable.
We've got these people coming over the channel, of course. And there's two things there. A, they're not of our ethnicity. They're mainly, without exception, even Muslim. And I don't think at the moment, there's a lot of feeling about this. I don't think that people are using the racist card here. They're using the fact that people are being let into our country and then abusing the system in various ways. I wouldn't call that racism. It's just factuality that people that have never paid into the system get paid better.
Well, people are very concerned about anybody being allowed in and then being given benefits and being even allowed to claim housing allowance and put down for council houses. It's very difficult because to a certain degree you want people to be allowed in and accepted when they've come from a different place. But you have to go through a process of legal entry into the country. And last week, Macron and Zama said they'd come up with proper legal means of entry and one in and two back, and I'm not sure they've done anything. But we have to accept people who really do need to claim asylum.
Mm.
And our nation and all nations will gain from having a variety of people. I think of so many of our Iraqi people who escaped under ISIS in recent days, and many of them under a good Christian prime minister in Australia for a short while. I think his name was Chris Roberts. And many of them, these were the little children I'd adopted when they were 2 and 3 years old. And now they're all training to be doctors and dentists and clinicians. And they're doing really well. And they'll give greatly to a nation, which is also good.
Mm.
And there used to be a lot of positive things about Australia.
I'll tell you what really concerns me, Andrew, and it's really come to the surface this week. And that's there is definite resurgence in hatred of Jews, big time. It's always been there at a low level, but it really has surfaced.
They're saying now, today, they were saying on the Sunday program that anti-Semitism is now endemic in England, around the whole of the country, but particularly where there are Jewish communities, which are not just Golders Green and Northcliffe, but many other places in England, not least Manchester, which still has the fastest growing Jewish community in the UK.
It does indeed, and we are very closely connected to a number of them there. We know the situation there, but I'll tell you who's making the noise against the Jewish community. It's the white, middle class, well-heeled liberals. Now, why should that be? Because there's obviously a spiritual dimension here.
Well, I think there's a major spiritual dimension because whenever we see that Israel is doing well, even like the war against Iran, when we see that Israel has actually hit back and got the Iranians like nobody else could, then they come back to the Jews. Look what you have done in Gaza. And yesterday in Parliament Square in London, there are huge demonstrations against the Jews for what they've done in Palestine. We want to be free of Jews. No, the Jews are God's gift to our world. We are the children of Abraham, and we as Christians cannot deny our links with Israel, which come through our father Abraham. And I love that because I'm the only person I know who's spent their life living in Mesopotamia, in Ur, in Babylon, in Iraq, and then came to Egypt and then back to Jerusalem, which is really the spiritual road of glory. And that is where we know that the glory of God is going to go. But wherever the glory of God is radiating, soon we see a massive development of anti-Semitism. And it is happening now.
Well, it's our heritage. We've been talking about heritage a couple of generations or so, but we've all got the same heritage right back to Abraham and even Adam.
Exactly. Even Adam.
Food for thought, Andrew, from a Christian point of view. Obviously, I have not come across a racist Christian. I'm sure there are, because
There are
our
plenty.
background.
Sadly, but the kingdom of God is always on the side of God. And God is always on the side of his people, Israel, who will last forever.
And it's part of creation that we're made different, even to the colour extent. Now, we've had nothing to do that. So it's obviously God's intention that it should be thus.
Exactly. As it was in the beginning, so it is now, and shall be forever, world without end.
And finally, Andrew, legislation doesn't change hearts and minds.
No, it doesn't. And what we're trying to get across through all your ministers and videos and through this weekly message is that we believe in a God who is mighty and who is one, and we are meant to be one, and we are meant to be faithful unto him and his promises. And one of his promises is, I will bless those who bless Israel, and they will prosper.
Great words of encouragement and of warning, because it also means, of course, if you don't bless Israel, you won't be blessed.
You will be cursed.
There we are. Thank you as usual, Andrew. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.